Parks and Rec aired from 2009 to 2015 and followed members of Pawnee's local government of an fictional small town in Indiana. It is focused mainly on the Indiana Parks and Recreation Department and their immediate supervisors, Chris and Ben, who are all pictured in the group picture. The department is formally run by Ron Swanson, however, he is opposed to government and therefore plays little role in its running. Leslie Knope serves as the authority figure, directing the rest of the main characters. She holds a strong love for the town and is notoriously undeterred by the obstacles she faces. The show shows the department interacting with the rest of the local and sometimes state government, who often limit and red tape what seem to be simple goals and initiatives from Leslie and her staff. I will first outline a few of the many issues present in the show to give you a better idea of its overall culture. However, I will be focusing on gender inequality and its effects, so I will then give an overview of this issue. I will then present how our leader should have handled the situation through each of the 4 frames outlined by Bowman and Deal. I'd recommend these actions, making these scenarios viable recommendations for the government to take, and I will end the presentation with additional recommendations that would work to stop this gender inequality and increase efficiency and effectiveness throughout the organization. These are some of the other ethical issues that could have been analyzed and discussed, such as the misalignment of many employees and informal players' goals and actions from the government's goal of bettering Pawnee. I will be focusing on the issue of gender within the larger Pawnee government, as it doesn't seem to be an issue in the department itself. This is likely as Leslie is an adamant feminist, dismantling gender issues, leading her staff by example, and serving as a symbolic representation of what public servants should embody, a selfless desire to help the community and a passion to do so. Politics is a male-dominated field.
All the members of the city council over the past 30 years, and every day as a woman I have to walk past this wall of men. It can be very upsetting.
The government is ridden with hurtful gender stereotypes, and its employees are often held to different standards and expectations based on their gender.
The problem with hiring women is that they're frail and breakable.
Is it possible you're thinking about light bulbs? Or your hip?
Many of the limitations placed on women come from the white older men that head the council and therefore hold power over Leslie and influence the changes she can make. Their leadership is biased and they treat and reprimand their employees depending on their gender. For instance, Leslie breaks a minimum rule and faces repercussions when a male councilman has a continuous string of affairs and poor ethical judgments and is not reprimanded.
That's a big deal.
Maybe in your world it isn't a big deal. You're a white Protestant man with a full, rich mustache. But I am a woman, and I need to hold myself up to a higher standard.
Women have learned to accept and expect mistreatment and outright discrimination and sexualization from men.
Back in the 70s, they smoked their cigars, they snapped my bra, wore mirrors on their shoes to look up my skirt.
Well, I am happy to report that it is now a pervert-free people's club.
Well, except for Councilman Dexhart, who's a self-described pervert.
Yeah, and didn't Milton try to kiss you?
Well, yeah, things aren't perfect.
Overall, women's presence in the government is limited and discouraged, and when a woman is present within the organization, potential authority is undermined by her gender due to other viewpoints, having to work harder and hold herself to extreme standards in order to have the same voice as a man. The environment of the outside world has changed in terms of equality, and therefore the expectations of the woman within the organization have changed as well. Now, unaligned, the ill-fitting structure doesn't direct its energy and resources as efficiently as possible, and the limited time and funds within the government in combination with the seemingly incompatible preferences of the employees holding sway result in conflict. As mentioned, a lot of conflict is due to the presence of issues in the larger society regarding gender and the differing values and beliefs of the old school leaders and the younger, especially women, politicians such as Knope. Currently, there's a stagnant bureaucracy where older traditions dominate and the top leaders are committed to the old ways, unable to detect the need for change. A leader exercising the structural frame would work to design a new structure that aligns with its current goals and environment, committed to and presenting a clear purpose of increasing equality while ensuring effectiveness in the ability of bettering Pawnee. Currently, there is no structural protocol to diagnose and handle the problem, and Leslie doesn't hold the formal authority to enact new policies and restructure as needed throughout the departments. Ideally, a task force would be created due to the complex environment and high levels of coordination needed. The task force would first examine the current structure before creating a goal that aligns their current environmental situation with the organization's objectives. As a leader can't be too close to day-to-day operations as they will likely lack concern for their long-term direction, it would be best if an outside individual was brought in to oversee the force and ensure that the government's actions were aligned with its new objectives. The task force would clearly delegate roles and responsibilities to the members of each department regarding the issue. They would work to diminish the particularism present, setting rules for particular situations to diminish ambiguity in responses based on stereotypes and political pressure, and ensure that individual behavior is predictable and consistent. For instance, the leader could create rules that would be applied to all if a certain scenario occurs, regardless of their gender. Efforts such as this to ensure acceptance, efficiency, and equality would have to be coordinated both vertically through the formal chain of command and laterally through meetings, committees, coordinating roles, or network structures. Divisionalized enterprises such as this one with its many different departments often become unwieldy unless goals are measurable and reliable information systems are in place. Therefore, objective indicators would be presented to measure progress, such as semi-annual check-ins on numbers of women promoted or hired, or number of complaints filed regarding these issues. Feedback would be given, increasing personal responsibility and rewarding or punishing commitment to this objective. I'd further place emphasis on the implementation of strict and effective policies that work to mitigate sexual harassment and avert expressions of sexism with corresponding punishments. Further, hiring practices targeting the inclusion of women would serve the company well by having a diverse interview panel, or at least one not run by old school men. Using the HR frame, a leader would focus on aligning the needs of the org with the needs of its employees. They would ensure that the employees feel as though they are contributing to the greater good so that they find meaning in their work and consequently bring higher levels of talent and energy. The leader would work to detail a philosophy that is clear and consistently implemented throughout, regarding an emphasis on inclusion, diversity, and equality. They would recognize the importance of diversity, as consistent barriers to women would prevent around half of a potentially talented employee pool from working. The leader would first work to ensure that women feel physically and psychologically safe. This could be done through implementing new rules and policies reducing harassment. The leader would likely invest in education and training of the current employees to decrease biases and increase awareness of stereotyping and its effects and sexual harassment. Then the leader would likely work to increase the overall level of care and feelings of belongings held between employees once these basic needs are met. Managers of each department would be held accountable for practices that would be built into day-to-day management. For instance, the implementation of women mentoring programs and recruiting practices that diversify the candidate pool. Further, feedback forms would be distributed throughout the process to better understand the employee's stance on people issues, allowing the leader to better pinpoint areas for change and opportunities for improvement. Knowing that Leslie would be the leader working towards this change through the political frame, she currently holds limited formal authority needed to make the necessary changes. Therefore, she would work to first gain greater influence before working to develop an agenda and power base that would support her diversity efforts and diminish gender inequality. Currently, those in high positions hold mainly illegitimate power, reliant on coercion and control of access to decision-making. Therefore, their ability to control is limited as they don't hold much respect and consequently authority. Leslie holds authority over those below her not only due to her position, but largely because of her reputation, her ability to frame meanings and symbols, and personal power. Leslie could capitalize on gaining position power through alliances and networks, building and cultivating ties with friends and allies, and then once she holds the necessary power, she could try to collect information before launching a new initiative. She would work to develop sensitivity, recognizing the major forces that would work for and against the agenda, better able to respond to their stances, ideally creating an agenda for change that people are willing to support before networking and attempting to gain enough support to successfully implement it. This agenda would balance long-term interests of key parties such as monetary success, efficiency, and equality, and a strategy for achieving the vision while recognizing the forces that would affect its implementation. Leslie serves as a successful symbol and example within her own department, personifying the values of dedication and equality. In theory, the government should hold values that would allow its employees to successfully become public servants. However, clearly, if these values are said to be exemplified within the larger structure, they are not being followed, as women are limited and restricted in participating, and public service is interrupted due to resulting conflict. Ideally, the leader of this organization would contribute significance to the efforts of lessening gender inequality as Leslie does. However, a culture seems to have formed that allows and accepts the mentioned issues. Ideally, leaders such as the councilmen would begin to lead by example as Leslie does, sending implicit signals towards the common goal of equality. However, they are often the issue and set an example of misogyny and offensive comments instead. Therefore, values and cultures need to be redefined, and these values actually lived by their employees. Again, a common goal or equality needs to be defined before symbols are introduced that create common ground between employees, reminding them that their purpose is to serve the public, exciting meaning and purpose in their knowing that they are bettering the world and helping those in Pawnee that do not help themselves. Women and men working on an equality council could serve as a symbol of unity, and such symbolic forms can unite diverse peoples towards this common goal. As ritual is an essential addition to large changes, transition rituals or everyday routines endued with special meaning will be implemented. For instance, lunches can be structured to mix department members and those in varying levels of power, and women employees can hold a weekly gathering to share and express their concerns and recommendations. Overall, Pawnee's government needs a cultural overhaul and to have leaders that have credible authority and therefore maintain and strive for the same consistent goal of helping Pawnee. As I previously said, I would recommend that they now maintain an additional goal of promoting and ensuring gender equality. Currently, the organization lacks soul. There is no resounding sense of confidence in it or its values. As soul and ethics are intertwined, it needs to maintain an unyielding commitment to ethical practices and create a core ideology that emphasizes more than money to ensure its long-term success. This new vision of inclusivity and equity needs to be emphasized alongside the importance of individual integrity. First, I would recommend to listen to all members of the organization before changes are made, and I would also recommend the implementation of the variety of possibilities that I've previously outlined in each of the frames. While implementing these changes, it would be important to ensure that roles and responsibilities remain clear for individuals, as well as where power is held for new initiatives so that there is no loss of control or confusion. I would further recommend that women, the vulnerable and excluded group, is given power to ensure fair access to decision-making, increasing their feelings that the organization is a fair place. However, to ensure justice in this sense, commitment is needed from top-down management, and currently, councilmen would not be aligned with this directive. Therefore, the organization would need to take on an even greater change to make sure that power and authority aligned and is based on merit instead of gender. Further, having more women in leadership positions would promote mentorship and feelings of inclusion and representation for others looking for a job or already within the organization. While I have not directly experienced sexism or issues stemming from gender inequality in the workplace, I would like to think that I would follow these recommendations as a leader.